I have a question for you all. Who is the baddest man on the planet? The title has changed hands numerous times over the years, but only one person can ever claim that status at any given time. And for some reason, their name usually has Mike in it. Mike Tyson. Michael Jordan. Michael Jackson. What, you don't think he belongs here? Well, he's the only Mike out of these three that has a whole song about being bad. Not good enough for you? Fine then. Michael Reeves. We'll put him on the list because I said so. But aside from him, today only two men have a claim to the title. World Heavyweight Boxing Champion Tyson Gypsy King Fury and World Heavyweight UFC Champion Jon Bones Jones. But how could we ever officially figure out who's the better of the two? Despite both being combat sports, MMA and boxing are worlds apart. A crossover between the two is a once-in-an-ever opportunity, and we already got that when Conor fought Floyd. So that's it, right? We'll just have to spend the rest of the time debating who's better instead of actually seeing who's better. Well, maybe not, because during the post-fight press conference following UFC Vegas 74, Dana White said this.
I'm telling Tyson Fury, whom I respect very much, if you really want to find out who the baddest man on the planet is, I will make that fight.
On paper, this sounds like an awesome, monumental event that will go down in combat sports history. But I actually think this is a terrible idea. Now, you're probably thinking what these two guys have already said, but hear me out on this and you might start to agree with me. If Jon went over to boxing to fight Tyson, well then that would be amazing. Conor proved that MMA training does carry over decently well to boxing. That's not to say boxing is easier than MMA. You need to be good at punching in both, but boxers are punching specialists, and MMA fighters can get by just being good enough at punching and excelling in other areas. Take GSP and other wrestlers like Khabib, for example. The punch is just a tool to set up the takedown. Switching gears back to boxing for a bit, do you remember watching the Mayweather versus McGregor fight? And I'm not talking about the build-up, I'm talking the actual fight itself. Most thought Floyd was going to school Conor. Even the Conor fans had to admit that the odds were stacked against him in this matchup. So when Conor came out and made the fight competitive, it was so much fun to watch. Even though he ended up losing, it was still an entertaining fight the whole way through. In this scenario, Conor was the underdog, but most would agree that he at least had a chance, and that's part of what made the fight so entertaining. I don't think the same can be said about Tyson Fury versus Jon Jones if it's in the octagon. Even if the fight is in a year, Tyson stands no chance against Jones. Here's a pretty accurate simulation of what would happen if they were to face off, even if Tyson had some time to mix some martial arts training into his schedule.
Jones is just making him carry him. And he's putting pressure.
Now I like Tyson Fury, but let's be realistic here. Jones would absolutely take him down within the first 30 seconds of the fight and make him tap. Ciryl Gane is an insanely good striker, but lacks in the grappling department. He probably trained a bit of grappling throughout his career, but didn't really focus on it until the camp before the Jones fight. It's not a lot of grappling training, but it's grappling training nonetheless, and even still, Jones made him tap out in the first round. If you're a Fury fan, you might be thinking to yourself, this isn't some random scrub off the street. Tyson is a world-class athlete. Surely a top-level boxer can transition to MMA at the top level. While you're right that Tyson is a great athlete, we actually have seen a boxing champion try his luck in the UFC. Enter James Toney, a pro boxer who had won the super middleweight, cruiserweight, and heavyweight boxing titles by the end of his career. He made the jump to the UFC in 2010, where he squared off against none other than Hall of Famer Randy Couture. This fight was a back-and-forth war and widely considered to be one of the best fights in combat sports history. So why am I doubtful that Tyson couldn't do the same? Well, because I just lied to you. It was not a back-and-forth war. Toney got taken down and submitted by the Natural in the first round of their fight. He did last longer in the fight than Surreal did against Jones, for what that's worth. So Tyson is probably losing if he fights in the octagon, but we'd be lucky if all Jon did was make Tyson tap out in the opening minutes. I'd be more worried that we'd see a brutal ground and pound TKO as Jon's way of sending a message. But even if the fight stayed on their feet, Tyson probably isn't going to be throwing any head kicks or doing, any super skillful striking aside from his punches. Definitely not at the same level that Jon does. In my opinion, asking a pro boxer to learn MMA in less than a year for one fight is just too much to ask for. I think Dana White saying that he's willing to sign off on the fight and even put the UFC heavyweight belt on the line is nothing more than a marketing stunt to get some headlines. There's just no way this fight is going to happen in the octagon, but even if it does, we already know what's going to happen. Now, if they were to box each other, that would be awesome. I'm 100% down with that. I think Jon could more than hold his own, and it would be an entertaining back and forth fight. But what do you all think? Would Fury shock the world and hand Jones his first real MMA loss? Would Jon starch Tyson in the boxing ring? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to see more UFC content, I have a video where I talk about the consequences of being too dominant of a champion, and another where I bitch about the current state of the heavyweight division. But that's going to do it for this video, folks. Take it easy and have a good one.